that says that Felix tried to solve an equation step by step. And it's asking for us to find the mistake. Well, this type of problem is a little confusing at first because in this type of problem, there's actually two ways of solving this problem. And I'm going to show you both ways. So right now, I'm not even going to talk about step 1, step 2, or step 3. I'm going to show you two ways to solve this problem. I'm going to show you first off the most common way that usually gets done, and then I'm going to show you the other way. So let's go with this. So in this particular problem, we have this is our first way, and we're going to have 2 times 5g minus 1 equals 3. And the way I typically do this, and most other people, is what's called the distributive property, where we multiply it across. So step 1 would be to do this, all right? And I'm actually going to scratch this out so we don't get confused. Let me get rid of those things. All right. So we're going to do the distributive property. 2 times 5g would give me 10g, all right? And then we're going to go 2 times a minus 1 gives me a minus 2 equals 3. Now that we've done the distributive property, we're going to go and do our two-step equation. So just like always, we're going to get rid of the addition or subtraction first. In this case, since it's subtracting 2, we're going to add 2, all right? And we're going to do that to both sides. So that would give me 10g is equal to 5. All right, and then for our last step, we're going to divide by 10 on both sides. Okay? And then what we get is that g is equal to 5/10. However, 5/10 is a fraction that we can simplify, and we can actually simplify that fraction into, clear that out, we can clear it into 1/2. All right? So going back over this particular method, what we did was, first off, we did step 1. We used the distributive property. Step 2, what we did was we got rid of the minus 2 by adding 2. And then step 3, our final step here, happened to be division. So this was one way of doing it, all right? Yeah, it's kind of funny that we had 3 steps for a 2-step equation, but that's okay. So that's one of the most common ways of doing it. Now I'm going to show you the second way. So we're going to do the same problem. 2 times 5g minus 1 equals 3. And I'm going to read that problem to you again and listen to what I'm saying. 2 times 5g minus 1 equals 3. We'll say it again. 2, keyword, times 5g minus 1 equals 3. And what we can actually do in this particular problem is another type of distributive property. It's another variation of it that's not used as much. But since we know we're taking 2 and multiplying it by everything in the parentheses, we can actually work backwards instead, and we can actually divide everything by 2. All right, so this is kind of anti-intuitive because you're so used to using the distributive property in a one way. This is kind of like the reverse of it. So where a while ago I multiplied by 2, I can actually do the reverse process and divide by 2. When I do, this is what happens. All right, it cancels out, and that gives me 5g minus 1 equals 3 divided by 2. Well, we can say 3/2, or we can write 1.5. Okay? Now that we've done that, we can solve this like a normal 2-step equation. I can go ahead and add 1 to both sides. And I get 5g is equal to 2.5. Now I can do my last step and divide by 5 on both sides. And I get that G is equal to 2.5 over 5. And if I use my calculator and I simplify this, I can actually change this into a simplified fraction. And that number would be, there we go, 1/2. So if you notice, both methods got me the same answer. However, what happened was, in this particular problem, my step 1, I was doing a reverse distributive property. I was working backwards. And then once I've done that, my step 2 is basically the same as before. We get rid of or adding or subtracting. And then my last step happens to be basically getting rid of the coefficient by dividing or by multiplying, depending on the scenario. So, now that we've done that, let's look at what happened here. So, Felix was solving an equation and we wanted to know what step he messed over. So first off, we need to figure out which one he is doing. Is he doing the normal distributive property way that we're used to? So is he doing this way? I'm just going to write distributive. All right. Or is he kind of doing it a alternate distributive, for lack of a better word? All right. So that's our first thing. Which way is he trying to do? Well, when we look at it, let's pay attention. So all of a sudden we went from 2 times that to a 5G. So that doesn't make sense, because if he was doing the distributive property, we know for a fact that he should have been 10G. So maybe in this particular problem, he's not using normal distributive property, maybe he's using the alternate. And if we look at what we've done, he does do that. Notice that how his step, when he was doing the alternate, he got 5G take away 1 equals 1.5. So that first step, now they didn't show all the work that I did, but that step is correct, all right? So he did the alternate. Now that we know that he did the alternate, we can see what happened here. So we are going to, in this case, just like what we did, we added a 1 to both sides. And he got 5G equals 2.5. Hey, that's what we got. It's the same thing. And then what we did, just like what he did, is we took 2.5 and divided by 5. Well, we got the fraction 1/2. Well, the fraction 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5. So his answer and our answer happened to be the same thing. He didn't make a mistake. All right, so let's try this one. Actually, I want to see if I can find another one. Hang on, let me just take a wild guess at it and then we'll move on. Oh, that was cool. Here we go. So here's another one. It's the same type. We have 2 ways of solving it. So one, we can use the distributive property. So let's see that first. So we have the distributive property, doing it the normal way. Well, if we do that, what we would get is going to be 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 4 happens to be a plus 12 equals negative 18. Well, if we look at what he did in his first step, he's got the same thing as what we have. So we know that he's not doing the alternate version, he's doing normal distribution. Now that we know that, we can follow our other steps. So we're going to subtract 12 from both sides. And we get 3x is equal to negative 30. Okay, so far so good. And then we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. That goes away and gives me x is equal to negative 10. And that seems to be the same thing that we've done. So it looks like Tyler has our same answer. So it doesn't look like he made a mistake. All right. Let's try this last one. So first off, we need to determine, is this distributive property like we normally do, or is this the alternate distributive property? Well, if we did the distributive property right off the bat, we know that this, okay, should end up becoming 3 times A, which is 3A, and 3 times 7, which is plus 21, equals negative 33. Well, this does not match their first step. So it is very probable that Betsy is actually using the alternate method. So let's try the alternate method. So we have the same problem. And our alternate way was, instead of multiplying by the parentheses, we're going to divide both sides by 3. When I do, I get A plus 7, because that cancels out, equals negative 11. All right? So that happens to match that step. So Betsy and we're all doing the same thing. Now that we do that, our job is to follow our normal rules. Let's get rid of adding and subtraction next. So I need to subtract a negative 7 here to get rid of the positive 7. And what happens is that cancels out, and I get A is equal to, well, negative 11, take away negative 7. I said that wrong again. Let me try again. Negative 11 take away 7 is actually going to give us a minus 18. So Betsy's last step, where she was getting rid of that 7, looks like it's incorrect. So let's see, step 2. All right, so hopefully this will help you. Just remember, there are 2 ways to solve this type of problem. Sometimes you're going to have to do normal distributive property. Sometimes you're going to do the alternate, and it's your job to figure out which way is happening. All right, hopefully this will help you out. All right, bye-bye.